All right. Welcome everybody to our show. This is Sarah and Brenda coming to you again to talk about Love is Blind DC. It's been a couple weeks.
Mm.
We watched episodes 1 through 9. Finally, we got through them. We've been in the comments, on the TikToks, on the threads, on the gram as well. So we know everything that's going on too. So we're happy to join you today. So how are you feeling, Sarah?
I'm feeling good. Yeah, we've seen a lot these last 2 weeks, so yeah, a lot.
It's a lot, and it's one of those things because I think you mentioned it to me, and a lot of other people have been talking about, especially the pods was really kind of boring and kind of like, okay, besides the little love square thing happening, it was a little like, okay, like kind of drug on a little bit. But I think when it
hmm
gets to the vacation and gets home, it gets a little more spicy, I think. Slightly spicy. So how we're gonna do this today is we're gonna go through some of the couples instead of going line by line with the or scene by scene. We're gonna go through the couples. So we can start with the couple that did not make it. Start with Leo and Brittany. Like, how do you feel about the art dealer?
I can appreciate Leo's honesty in terms of talking about like his losses, and his passion for art. Uh, I was just very concerned because at one point in the pod, he expressed that one of his biggest fears was that women would only want him for his money, and then he proceeds to talk about his money. So, not quite sure what's going on there.
Yeah. Is he I had high hopes for him as we were looking at his Instagram. I was like, okay, he has personality. And I
Mm-hmm.
knew that the personality could either come off abrasive or harsh or misunderstood, or it could come off endearing. And I think on this end, it ended up coming off more of insincere and um yeah, it's just a little strange, and I'm sure he talked about more in the pods,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the thing that we're realizing with reality shows is they legit have people who are just like, we're just gonna find the storyline. So even if he talked about money for like 10 minutes out of the 8 hours they were in there, they were gonna hold that down. But like, what did you think about Leo and Brittany's connection? Do you think, at least in the beginning, like in the pods, it felt real? Because for me, it felt kind of surface, and I was curious if they actually had deep conversations.
I'm not too sure. Like, I do feel that Brittany was. Let me put it this way. I think both Leo and Brittany were genuinely looking for love. I think the way that both of them go about it is ironically very similar. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that probably attracted them to one another. I personally feel like Brittany ignored her gut because there was a moment she like so when she wrote a letter to him after finding out like what happened with Hannah, it was one of those things where I was like, girl, you should have did a mic drop like last season and just pieced out. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and the fact that that didn't happen, mm,
And it led to a proposal.
yeah, it felt disingenuous. You just told this guy off, and then you allow him to basically propose to you, and then you say yes. In that moment, I felt like she just wanted to be chosen.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe she was curious about because I mean you don't get to see them until after the fact. So I guess for her, it was like, okay, well, at least I'll get to see who I've been talking to or who I've connected with. But towards the end, I felt like their connection was disingenuous for me. I just wasn't feeling
Yeah.
it.
Because I really didn't. So we know, we'll talk about some of the other couples, but a lot of them, you could tell they were talking about like their family a little bit, or
Mm.
talking about some of their past relationships or something, their views on things, like something of depth. And it didn't feel like either one of them really gave much of depth that they showed. And maybe that was the producers trying to make them look shallow on both ends, because I think they both look shallow, not deep, very just non-connecting. Like, for her to write that letter, and she starts off before she reads the letter like, I've never written a letter this long to anybody else. And then it starts off talking about how horrible he is and how
Mm-hmm.
she doesn't know if she has a connection with him and how mad she is and stuff. And that didn't make sense to me. I was kind of like, and then how they cut it up to it feeling like 5 minutes later, then he proposes. And I'm just like, well, who proposes after hearing that?
Mm.
That just seems dumb to me. Like, if you wrote me a letter and you were like, Brenda, I just don't know how I feel about you. I think that you're okay, but you really made me mad the other day. I'm not like, I just don't see myself being like, okay, now I'm going to propose to you. Like, it doesn't equate to me. I think that was the main thing that I realized listening to it, and that was my struggle. And I think, and the fact that she never even told him that she loved him,
Mm-hmm.
which most of them at least try to make happen by the time proposal day comes. They try to say how they feel about that person. And I think Leo might have been too immature on both ends to really say genuinely how he feels, because he tried to tell uh Brittany how he felt, but he also said a whole bunch of things about to Hannah the day before or the night before,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it was. So it doesn't make sense. Um, so I just think Leo just came off disingenuous, and then I think Brittany came off shallow on the show, and then it led to that when they met up and they actually saw each other, and then it's just like
That was awkward.
awkward.
It was just, it was awkward. And the way he was kind of
Yeah.
grabbing her neck, I was like, I don't
He
know
was
what's going
like,
on.
should I be here?
It wasn't
And
even it was giving more of like, Brittany girl, blink twice if you're
yeah,
still okay.
yeah, they were on two different planes, and that was just weird. And then how Netflix decided to hit us with the, oh, so they were not picked. And they went to Miami and they broke up 2 weeks later. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, I think that's an overall criticism that I have that will probably come out as we continue talking about all of the couples, but the editing this season, and I don't know if it's because we as the viewers are just getting more hip and more privy to like what's happening behind the scenes and
Mm-hmm.
how the secret sauce is made, but the editing this season was choppy. So I feel
Yeah.
like not only did we get probably too much pod content, but we didn't get the right pod content. Like, I feel like it's very hard to really understand how each couple even gravitated towards each other.
Mm-hmm.
And Leo and Brittany are probably one of the better examples of that. I'm not really sure why or even how they connected. They didn't show
Yeah.
us, I think, the right conversations. I think they kept it focused on the fact that she's dated millionaires and rich people and famous people, and he
Has
all his
money.
basically, yeah, he has money because all his family
Yeah.
members have passed away and they've given him an inheritance. I'm
Mhm.
not.
They made her look like a gold digger and him
Mhm.
look like a pimp or like a, sugar daddy type of deal. That's
Yeah,
pretty much what they made their connection.
and I think we caught on. I think they did it. If they were gonna do that, I get it. Every cast member has to fit into a character, but the way that they went about doing it, I feel like we didn't get to know them as people. So it was like we were watching them engage in back and forth conversations, and they would be talking about one thing the next, and we'd be like, "Huh? Like, how did you all get here?"
Yeah. Yeah, it was really strange. So yeah, that's Leo and Brittany. Who do we want to talk about next?
Mm.
Your choice. Sarah's choice.
Let's go ahead and just talk about Marissa and Ramses, cause why not?
Okay. Marissa and Ramsey.
Let's just go ahead and get into that one, y'all. So I'm not.
Yeah.
When we looked at Ramses, when we were looking at Instagrams, I was like, I don't know, y'all.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. And then, first of all, I think he kind of popped up in the pod content like randomly initially. I was like,
Yeah,
okay, there he
late.
goes. And I thought like the connection that he had with Marissa was kind of like bubbly and fun and light.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was like, you know what, they could be a really good pairing. I struggle again with the fact that I feel like there's specific pod content that they probably should have shown us that would have been helpful once we saw how they were interacting in the real world, because you have to wonder, like, we all know now Marissa was in the military
Mm-hmm.
and Ramses has an issue with the military, and that's a big huge part of her identity. It came
Yeah.
up during the pod, so we know
Yeah.
they've talked about it. But for it to be such an issue that if she were to reenlist, that it would be a deal breaker, I just feel like those are all things that you had an opportunity to talk about and consider before
Yeah.
proposing.
Yeah, it was really strange and how they made her sound like she uh only chose him because of his astrology
Mm,
signs. And she did a whole TikTok about it. Like that wasn't the only thing that made me choose him. And I was like, yeah, they definitely made you seem very shallow and like, oh, that's your sign? Oh yes, I got this. I'm choosing you. Forget Bodon. I'm going like Ramses it is. And that's what it made her seem like. So it made it seem like then when they get out the pods and are having these deep conversations, like they never had these conversations before.
mm-hmm.
And people always talk about how the pod dates are so long. And I mean, I feel for the Netflix editors and all that type of stuff because that's a lot of stuff to go through and try to parse through and make it something. So kudos to them for trying to make it something. But like you said, I feel like something had to be missed because it was just like they were on cloud nine at um the honeymoon or vacation. Then they go home and they have a week meal and they're talking about two hard subjects at a time, like talking about religion and then talking about military service at the same conversation. That was too much for me. And I just feel like it had to have been the producers like, "Hey, while y'all are having dinner, can you talk about religion and talk about the military?" Because
Yeah,
who
that's
wants
a lot.
to have 2 tough conversations over some dry pasta or noodles or whatever he had? Like, nobody wants that. So, I think that was the weird part for me, and then, of course, his perspective on birth control and kids and the fact that like she's in her early 30s and she's kind of like, look, my time frame is that 1 to 3 years, that type of thing. He's more like 3 to 5 or whatever else. And she's like, look babe, my eggs, all the things. And then she also talks to him about how she doesn't really feel comfortable right now having birth control because
Mhm.
of either it might have been a previous experience or it might just be, what she knows about how birth control could impact her body or whatever else. And then he's kind of like, so what we gonna do? How we gonna have sex if you don't have birth control? We're gonna have, do I have to wear condoms? It was just a lot. And I thought that was just a little bit like he just feels his edit comes off self-righteous, I think.
Mhm.
And like he's the only one that has the right moral compass on everything. And I'm curious how that would play out over time. And if that's really who he is, or if that's just a snippet. So I think that's the thing about him. And I think her side, it'll be interesting because it doesn't seem like she's super like she depends on her family per se, but her family came out guns blazing. Especially her mom. So I'm very curious about like if they did work it out, like how that works for them, and the mom bringing up the prenup and all that type of stuff, even though she doesn't have any money yet. That was the other thing. I'm like, so how do you get a prenup for money that you don't have yet? But okay.
Well, I
Like,
guess you could technically within the prenup just say like for all
whatever
things,
money can
whatever
be.
whatever is made in the future, like you could
Yeah.
technically protect future assets. Like that would be my assumption. But
Yeah.
her mom, I will say this, I just think like, everybody has to take what their parent says with a grain of salt because everybody is working through their own trauma, their own grief, their own
Mm,
baggage. And unfortunately, that was clearly on display for us.
yeah.
Um, I definitely think that the producers did make Ramses appear very self righteous.
Mhm.
Um, and then they also, maybe not intentionally, but that's how it came off to me as a viewer. They used the birth control conversation and the conversation kind of like with Marissa's mom to kind of knock him down a few pegs.
Mhm.
Because when I thought about it, I was like, it wasn't that there was anything that he necessarily said early on in the first couple of episodes that was like, I don't really like this. It was more of like what you said earlier, that his view is the only view. And I wonder
Mhm.
how much of that stems from his immigrant background too.
Yeah.
And not necessarily getting all of the nuances and understanding all of the intricacies um, of maybe someone who is born here, because
Mhm.
there are differences. It's not saying
Yeah.
that there's one that's completely wrong or one that's right, but it's just different, right? Like if
Yeah.
you
And
know
she
be
was a military kid too.
exactly, like her family's in the military, she served in the military, like it's not, and she served during her young adult years too, like very formative years. She's not going to just sit there and just say, well, I don't care about this anymore. Like it's very much a part of her life. And we even saw some of her friends who were a part of the military too.
Mhm. And I also think they didn't show a lot about like Ramses talking about his journey to the United States and what that looked like to maybe help us understand him a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Like, were they refugees, trying to come into the United States? Were they like what did that look like for him? What was going on in, I believe, Venezuela, right?
Yeah.
In Venezuela at the time and things like that. So I think that could have been helpful to understand their story. And I think Marissa mentioned that she was in ROTC in high school and college, I believe. And by the way, she's an AKA. I did see that. And I was like,
Oh,
wow.
really?
She went to Savannah State. She's an HBCU grad and an AKA. I was like, wow, who knew? Um, but yeah, so she was a military brat, did ROTC, and then also like went into the military. Like that's a large, that means you've been kind of trained for this since you were 15, pretty much. And now she's 30 something. And there's a whole sense of trying to find purpose for military veterans. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm definitely curious to see what will happen with them. Do you think they'll stay together or do you think they're gonna break up?
Um, I think I'm gonna stick with my maybe. I think there's a chance that they could stay together, and here's why. I think they tried to throw us off with that birth control conversation. This is not the first time that we've seen a scene like that on Love Is
We saw
Blind.
it.
We saw that
We
with
saw it in the last.
Was it Johnny and Amy?
Yeah, Johnny and Amy.
Yeah, we saw that too. The whole like, why don't we use condoms? And so I feel like that was kind of just like, all right, y'all,
Softball.
yeah, you're playing through the same playbook. The the conversations they have are so lengthy, so it's highly possible that that's such a small snippet of a larger conversation they had. I
Yeah.
know a lot of people have just kind of been really hammering at him about that, and I honestly feel like it was two consenting adults who are having a conversation about how they want to handle birth control, and we saw maybe 15 to 30 seconds of it. Like
Yeah.
we didn't even see them come to a consensus, and I'm sure they have. And
Mm.
there's just so many forms of birth control out there, so I'm 100% certain that they found something that works for them. The only thing that I think could be a deterrence is honestly probably Marissa's mom.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much influence she has on Marissa, so that would be something to look out for, because out of all the parents, her behavior kind of took me aback a little bit, because it was,
Yeah.
I mean, let's just be honest, like you're meeting someone you don't know, like there should still be a level of respect there, and I just felt like she came out the gate swinging.
And I think the other thing I was gonna say about them was that I wonder how close her mom, like Marissa and her mom are,
Mm,
because Marissa talked in the pause about wanting to work and wanting Ramses to stay at home and be with the baby and how she doesn't
mhm.
want to stop working. And then her mom was like, "Are you gonna take care of my daughter?" While because she wants to stay at home with her kids. And I was just like,
Yeah,
I
there's some
swear
mismatch.
Marissa said, I was like, I swear Marissa said that she wants to work. It was asking Ramses if he want to be Mr. Mom. So
We'll see.
I'm just curious. So I I don't know if they'll say yes. Part of me feels like they could be good friends, but
Mm,
Ramses might, now that he sees how deep her military circle is and how everything relates back to the military, her friends are military, all that type of stuff. I'm curious if he can deal with it, because even though she's not in it anymore, it's a huge part of her value system.
mm.
So, and I don't know that she can say that she doesn't believe in the military because I think she does, which makes sense. As you, I believe in the military. Like you don't have to agree with everything they do you know, to disagree. So I think no. I think just friends.
Mm. Okay.
Let's go Taylor and Garrett.
Taylor
Let's,
and Garrett. Mm,
yeah.
mm,
They're
mm.
they're like they were the couple coming in where you're like, okay, like y'all are cute. They're meeting in the pods and then they have the science background and they both have science tattoos and just uh getting to know each other and she holds back her uh partial ethnicity and just trying to see if he's attracted to her and all that type of stuff. So I thought that they were cute. I thought that they had real conversations. She read her grandparents' letters in the pods. And
Mm.
I really love that when she was like, look, you're gonna have to try harder than that. Like, give me a little more. That he sent her the sunflowers with the note and the mark yes or no, like, will you be my girlfriend? And I thought that that was really cute. I think we saw a little bit more of that this season of the gifts and doing some extra stuff, sending things to the person. I think we saw that. Like, I don't think we've ever seen somebody have flowers delivered to them in the pod. I mean, outside of the pods, like in the lounge. I don't think we've ever seen that.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think it's always been inside the pods and then they bring it into the lounge, but never to the lounge
mhm.
itself.
Yeah, so I thought that that was pretty cool. It's like, hold up, what's that? Go over there. Oh, that's from Garrett. So I like that about them. So I'm enjoying their story. I think they're one of those stories like the who we were talking about, Amy and Amy from Houston. Um, was that Houston or is that Atlanta? Um,
I can't
the
remember.
ones that had the birth control conversation, the other
Yeah,
birth
Amy
control,
and
like
Johnny. Yeah.
Amy and Johnny, where people are like, they're gonna say yes, like we don't need to watch them, like they're kind of boring type of deal.
Mm.
So I kind of feel like they're drumming up some stuff with Taylor and Garrett just to try to make it interesting, but I think they're pretty solid. What about you? What do you think about them?
Yeah, I'm going to eat my words on this because when we looked at both of their Instagrams, I feel like I was hating on both of them. Taylor because of that outfit, and well, I thought the outfit was alright, and then Garrett because I was like, this guy's going to be really boring. I don't know. I don't see it. And then I think he's the one that's like was modeling or something, and we were like, oh,
Yeah, he had that
okay.
one model picture. And that's why people think they're still together, because people think that,
He's out
upgrade,
modeling in
the wife
California.
upgrade.
I was hating, so I'm gonna eat my words on that. So if Taylor Garrett, if y'all come across this video anytime soon, just know I'm eating my words. I really like their pairing. So
Yeah.
from the fact that they both had like the science tattoos, which I thought was so cute because
Who does that?
yeah, I was like, there's people out there doing that anyway. And then they both knew what their tattoos meant too. So I was like, in my mind, I'm still doing calculations, like, huh?
I would have
Um,
been.
I was just so confused. But I think I realized their conversation was going well when Garrett admitted that he has spent a lot of time in his career and was really in a place where he wanted to prioritize finding love. And I was like, okay, this man is serious. Um, and like, I think a lot of people gave him flack for some of his comments when Taylor was basically like, I don't want to share my ethnicity. And I think what people really have to understand, one of two things, right? Yes, Taylor was talking about her mom and didn't want to share her mom's name because it would have given away her ethnicity. I get that. I also understand that Garrett probably felt like, okay, this conversation that feels a little contrived, like it feels like you're being really controlling about this, but
Yeah.
eventually came around and was like, okay, cool, whatever, not an issue. But people gave him a lot of flack. But I would say, like, we're never gonna know, right? Because it's already
Yeah.
happened. But I do feel like it's easier to make assumptions about people once you start to have little ideas in your head. And we have seen this happen.
Yeah.
We've seen this happen a few times. Okay. Even on this season, someone said that they looked like what's his face from The Witcher? I can't remember. When I remember his name, I'll say it.
Travis Kelce. Nick D said he looked like Travis
He
Kelce,
said he
right?
looks like Travis Kelce. Somebody else said that
Or
they looked
something like that.
somebody else said that they looked like somebody, and I was like, y'all just have to stop doing this,
Yeah.
please. So I don't blame her for being like, I'm not sharing my mom's name. So put some respect on that. I appreciate that. The one thing that I think I worry about, and you find this out later, a couple of episodes later, again, going back to the way things have just been edited in the story they're trying to tell about each of these couples. You get to an episode and all of a sudden they're talking to people and she's basically sharing like, yeah, peace out, DC. I'm trying to go back to San Diego. And I'm like, huh?
Yeah. It was one of those things like, hold up, do I gotta rewind to the pods? Like, Did I miss something? Did I fall asleep?
Yeah, I literally did go back. I was like, I think I missed something. I think I missed Garrett's reaction. Let me just go back.
Yeah.
No, it was literally introduced that way. And I'm thinking to myself, I think with Garrett and Taylor, we really only got to see initially Garrett's family, and they're
Mm-hmm.
based here in Fredericksburg, Virginia. So I'm like,
Yeah.
he was talking about how they get together and they have Sunday dinners. So already in my mind, I'm like, are you about to rip this man away from his family? He's going to go to San Diego where he knows nobody, and that's where all your
Yeah.
family is. You're
Mm-hmm.
meeting him here. So, I'm very curious to see where it goes. I do think they're going to make it. I do think that they're probably both together in California right now.
Yeah.
But I am interested, I think, and we'll probably hear this in the reunion, to figure out how they made it work, because I mean, that means you're moving away from your job. I don't know if his job is remote or if he just decided to be like, you know what, I've done this for a long time. It's time to pivot, which we are all allowed to do. So I'm intrigued. I'm
Yeah.
curious to see how it works out. I'm also curious to hear how he meets her family and how that
Mm-hmm.
if
Yeah,
and
because
how
I
that
think
goes.
that's in this next episode.
Yeah, so that I'm very excited to see how they receive him as well.
Yeah, because I mean, her dad is white, so it's not as much of like culture shock, I feel like, as they kind of, because I mean they played this up on season 1 with Lauren and Kim.
Mm.
And they're like black and white, 2 black parents, 2 white parents. So at least in this case, she has an Asian parent and she has a white dad, a white parent. So I think it shouldn't be as much of an issue. I think it's more of the main issue of you marrying this person and you only known them for a couple weeks. Like, what
Yeah.
is this? So I'm curious kind of how she had the conversation with them. I'm also, I know they had to have missed that, oh, hey, San Diego, blah, blah, blah. But if I was going on the show, I think you need to say that you're going to be staying in an area. Like I plan on staying in the DC metropolitan area for another 2 years or something like that. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious why it was such a rush, it seemed like, of like, oh, we need to get married and move. I don't know if she's trying to have a baby like off
I
the
think
top.
she had already made those plans and then found out she was on the show, and I think that's what
Yeah,
happened.
maybe that's what it is, because that I did not like. Because I would hate to fall in love with somebody in the pods and then they're like, "Oh yeah, so I'm moving to wherever," and it happens to be on the other side of the country. Like,
Flights to San Diego are not cheap, y'all.
right, and especially when your family's here. And I felt him when he said he doesn't want his kids to feel like his grandparents are just, like their grandparents on his side are just Christmas and summer break
Mm.
grandparents or something. So I definitely understood that. So I mean, I think they can make it. I think that they'll figure it out. They seem to have mature
Mm-hmm.
conversation. And if they don't make it, I could see them being friends and it not ending messy.
Yeah, I agree.
Um, so I could see them having conversations. We'll see how this next episode goes, because I think this next couple episodes has the Pod Squad reunion type thing,
Oh
and I feel like
Lord.
I saw some mixing and things happening, and I feel like they might be trying to blow something out of proportion for them. So we'll see. Let's see. Who should we talk about next? Your turn.
Ooh. Monica, 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 oh Monica,
Monica.
and Steven.
All right, let's
Hmm.
talk Monica and Steven. Now,
Mm.
so when we did his Instagram, I was like, oh, okay, cool. We're just like, all right, he's just a regular dude. But when he said, as soon as he said, I got a little black in me, then I could not unsee it. Like, I could not unsee the
We were
little bit
like,
of black.
ooh.
I was like, oh, you are black. You look kind of weird, but you are black. Sorry, Steven. Maybe not sorry because the way you treated my girl Monica, but okay, so I feel like for this storyline, they actually did pull the string through for this storyline because they specifically pulled out his conversation where he said, "Look, so out of nowhere, I've cheated before." Okay.
They
And
drew
then
him.
it feels like in the beginning, oh wow, this is really genuine of him to say this. And him like he's saying it without her even asking, have you ever cheated before? And just having this conversation where he's telling about how he emotionally cheated and how he's in therapy and all this type of stuff. So we're like, okay, got it. So they pulled that thread all the way through
Mm.
to the end, of their relationship because it's like, okay, now we know. Like you really be scheming, Steven. Like you out here scheming. So I thought that their connection seemed okay. It wasn't like the best, I don't think, and it wasn't the worst, I suppose, but it was just one of those things where I'm like, okay. And I think we talked about it too of the tale of two worlds. Is he going to find someone in the DC area that's okay that he's an electrician? What is his background outside of the military, things like that? And it seems like she's used to the finer things in life. And we saw her mention that a lot. So she was kind of edited to be materialistic,
Mm-hmm.
and he was edited to be goofy, I
And a
think.
little bit aloof, honestly.
Yeah.
There were definitely some moments where I was like, Steven, like I was right there with her. I was like, are you like when when they were on the couch and Monica was like, are you well? I literally was
Yeah.
like, that is the precise question that I have. I'm like, are you
Yeah.
okay? Like, what is going on?
Yeah. Cause like some people take the cameras differently, and he was, I don't know. He was kind of weird.
Yeah, definitely he came off weird on camera. I will say I I think Monica and Steven aside, I think with Monica I had high hopes, and I think call me biased, but Monica I think was the oldest girl in there.
Yeah.
And this was obviously a year ago, so she was 36 at the time. Being 36 now, I was rooting for her. I was like, I hope
Yeah.
that she finds love, that she's able to get out the pods, that she finds somebody she can go and gallivant off into the sun. And I think for me, it was their meeting was weird, but I to be honest, the meeting when the couples meet after being in the pods when they first meet,
It's always weird.
it's always weird. It's very rare that you just find this perfect chemistry. It's just very rare, y'all. Like we've literally only seen it a few times. Like, and even if you go back and watch season 1 and you see Cam and Lauren, like it's still a little like,
It's
okay,
weird.
you
Then
know
they
what
do
I
that
mean? Yeah, like,
running.
and I love them. They are my favorites. But if you go back and watch, you're like, it's still kind of like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Is my dress okay? It's
Mhm.
so I
Yeah.
wasn't really paying too much attention to their meeting. I think what stood out to me where I was like, oh, I really need to be listening to what this man is saying is when they were in Mexico and the conversation was just about boners. I was like,
Yeah.
the way they edited it, he was like, well, his boner and this and boner this and boner that. And he was like, yeah, the boners. And I was like, huh? I literally said
Yeah.
it out loud. I was like, huh? What? Why are we talking about this? That was the moment where I was like, anything Steven says, I need to pay attention to it because there's something going on with this couple. It's weird, and we're gonna find out. And the way we found out was just so gut wrenching because I feel like it was a microcosm of what so many people in the DC area or the DMV or Maryland, Virginia, or whatever you want to call it, DMV area and Baltimore experience um, in the dating pool, which is just you
Yeah.
get your hopes up, you think that this one person's going to work out, and then you find out that there's just chaos. And this man was an agent of chaos.
Yeah, he was pure chaos. But she didn't, I don't want to victim blame, right? But it feels like she ain't make it completely easy either. It just feels like they were kind of parallel, like they weren't really connecting, because she talking about, oh well, we're on the honeymoon or the getaway. You said you were gonna give me flowers. Y'all ain't even back yet. Like, like, what are you talking about? And then like, oh, I want these types of bags, or I want this, or I want that, and I'm a gift giver, and all this type of stuff. And he's like, well, I ain't never had a gift. And it was just very, it was giving, okay, y'all are it, because some people, when they grow up differently, you can find common ground based on like interests or something like that. Like maybe they like the same things, or they both like adventure, or I don't know, like whatever it is. But for them, it just wasn't clear to me what they were really attracted to about each other either. Like, did we really get a real, for a lot of these couples,
I
honestly,
didn't get it for any
we
couples
don't,
this season, like at
yeah.
all. I mean, from
Like, why are
a
you together?
yeah, like from a I don't know what's really bonding some of these couples other than wanting to be selected, which is this is not a shade towards any of them. I think this is just
The
honestly,
edit.
I think this is a shade more towards the producers and how it was
Yeah.
edited. So yeah, it's so tough because I agree with you. Like it's hard, to have those kind of expectations on somebody. I will say though, and this goes for both men and women, like if you say you're gonna do something, you should probably just follow through and do it. Um,
Mhm.
only because like a lot of times people will say, "Oh, I can't. I'm gonna get you flowers and all this other stuff," and it sounds like you've done a big one in your head, but in reality, you have done nothing. So I
Yeah.
think Monica probably could have done this differently, maybe in a different way, tactfully, that maybe would have been received. And I think we kind of see this when he takes her to that like flower thing where
Yeah,
they're
the power press thing.
hard pressed flowers and all that other stuff. But um you just kind of have to remind people like everything you're saying is all good, but I'm more of an action oriented person. So let's see what you do, that's
Yeah.
consistent with what you're giving me. But he just dropped a lot of hints that he was just all over the place. And by the time we got to Monica and Taylor on the couch, first of all, when they were crying, I was so confused. I
Yeah,
was
it's like,
like,
what is happening?
did
Like, what did
Garrett do
Garrett
something?
do?
I was ready to fight.
Right.
I was ready to fight for my girl Taylor.
Mhm.
Okay.
You talk about a sleep study. I'm like, how one, okay, so here's the thing that I haven't heard as many people talking about, but maybe I haven't watched it all. But how are you drunk at a sleep study? Like, who, what?
That man was not at a sleep study, came
Like,
in to the apartment like Pink Panther in the background, like I'm sorry, y'all. I fell out my couch. The man was creeping in the background in the kitchen, and I was like, they're talking about you.
Keisha
You
said
know.
sleep study my ass. Yeah, because it's just like, what? Like, if you gonna lie, like, give me a good lie. Like, don't give me no, I was drunk at a sleep study.
He should
Huh?
have just texted her and been like, "This is not working." I would like he should have pulled a Married at First Sight and been like, "This is not working. I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. I'm not coming back."
And the way that they killed that whole scene of like, yeah, so I guess this isn't working. Okay, now Venmo my money. I was like, dang, Monica.
That honestly, that was the second coldest line in Love Is Blind history.
Yeah.
The first one was
The
old girl.
EpiPen.
Yes, the EpiPen. That was Chef's kiss. But this one, she was like, "You need to send me the money for me pulling your weight from this past week. Please pull out your phone and Venmo me my money."
Exactly. Like that was, I said, oh, okay, Monica, she not playing.
I said one thing
So,
about us in the DMV: if you owe us money, we're gonna find a way for you to send it to
right.
us. Cash App, Venmo, PayPal, okay,
Mhm. Like I
Zelle.
was being nice because we was engaged and all that type of stuff. But right now, you gonna give me my money, boo.
She said, "Run me my money." I fell out, but that was probably the best way for her to kind of exit, honestly. There, because I mean, it was unfortunate, but I'm glad that she was able to kind of see this
Come
now
out on
before they.
top.
Yeah, I would have rather this happened than she got to the altar. They said yes, and then we got to the reunion and we found out that something like this happened. She
Yeah.
dodged the bullet, really.
Yeah, she did. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but it, I'm happy that she went through his phone and found it out. So I think
The
that was
man had
good.
the nerve to delete the text messages, y'all. Like, mm,
Ugh, just
mm.
crazy. All right, who should we do next? Alex and Tim or Leo and Hannah?
No,
Because you know,
we did Leo and Hannah already.
I mean, no, we did Leo and Brittany. We didn't do Leo and
Oh, we
Hannah.
did Leo and Brittany. Oh, okay. Wait, you mean
I mean, not
Nick?
Leo.
You
Let's
mean
do Nick D. Nikki
Nick?
D.
Okay, let Nikki D
Yeah,
and
yeah. Let's do
Hannah.
Hannah and Nikki D. Okay, so Nikki D is a football player, and this thing, the thing about Nikki D and Hannah is like these people when they hear football player, it's clear that you don't know any positions because when he says he's a kicker is not a quarterback. A kicker is not the wide receiver, a running back, a center, a defensive lineman, like any of those people. The kicker is just like going out there and they kicking and then they off. They barely getting hit.
Them kickers are
Like,
small.
yeah,
When he
they're
said
not
that, I was like,
huge.
oh, he is giving Big D energy, and he's a small. He's probably like our height, and I was like, it's okay, it's
I was
okay.
like, I was like, y'all, as soon as he said he was a kicker, y'all should have known. And I guess they don't have their phones and stuff like that, so they can't go and see like how tall is a kicker or something like that. But was there nobody like exactly because Keisha said he she was disappointed, but he told her his position
You
because
know,
it
yes.
say what the position is. It's like if somebody for basketball, like I know basketball, and if somebody says, "Yo, I'm a forward or like a power forward or something like that," I'm like, oh, "Okay." I'm thinking 6'5", 275. You know, you got muscle. You know, like that type of thing because you at the basket. I know that because I know your position. So clearly now people got to study these sports so that when people start saying what position they're in, that you could say, oh, okay, this is probably what you might look like. But it's like I mean, not centers, kickers are not the ones that you're like, oh my gosh, their body is, this or that. And kickers are not making the most money. Even on what he was on a D league or something like that, like one of the developmental leagues and stuff.
Mm.
So that was one thing. And then Hannah, you could tell that she was immature too. That she was the youngest. Like you could tell she was the youngest because it felt like she just went whichever the way the wind blew. And the way she went in there and told him that she wanted to break up with him because the girl said so. That to me, I was like, girl, why you gonna let these other people who got their own relationships say, something about whether you're gonna keep your man or not? And I felt like he was being genuine in the pause to her. I don't know what the other conversations look like with the other people he was talking to, but it felt like he was being, genuine and trying to get to know her or whatever else. And for her to just be like, oh, well, what do you think? What do you think about him? What do you think about him? I'm going in there and I'm gonna break up. And then as soon as she comes in, Brittany's like, yeah, I just got off my date with Leo. And then she's like, what did I do? I just broke up with Nikki D for Leo, and now I'm in a triangle with Brittany. That was interesting to me.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised by their pairing. I would say with Nick D, I appreciated his energy out the gate. Like it
Yeah.
was given big man on campus. And I think he really understood, like, he really had to bring out the personality for the pods, which
Mhm.
I appreciated. And it was like, it wasn't too much. It was like funny.
Yeah, it was just
Um,
enough.
it was just enough, you know what I mean? And I know like it was probably like either scary or off-putting to some of the other girls. I think, some of that is probably also just projecting their experience. They've probably dealt with a guy, and maybe that kind of personality reminded them of
Yeah.
someone they've dealt with in the past that just didn't work out. Uh,
Mhm.
but I appreciated like his humor in the pods. It was honestly like a
Yeah.
nice comedic relief because this
Mhm.
season was a little bit heavy for me personally. I was like, this is a
Yeah,
lot.
we about to get to the heavy.
Yeah. Uh, with Hannah, with her being the youngest girl in the pods, I think you articulated it very well. I think she's still in a place where, and again, this is us looking at. I don't know where she is today. This was a year ago, so
Yeah.
this is just based on what we watched. But at that time, she seemed to be a little bit in a place where she really did think of. She cared a little bit too much about what people thought of her,
Yeah.
and how people perceived her choices. Like, and it was just, I don't know. It was actually frustrating for me to see the scenes where the older women were discouraging her from talking to him. And find that that's something that honestly happens a lot in the real world. People, and
Yeah.
we as women just have to be very careful about the advice that we give each other, because sometimes it's not the right advice. Like, I
Mhm.
think what would have served her better in that moment is for someone to have pulled her aside, maybe one to one, like not in a whole group, because there's always groupthink. And I
Yeah.
think someone should have said, look, this is an opportunity that you're not going to get again. You need to get to know all of the guys, but also like trust your intuition and your gut. Like, if you're connecting with someone, just because everybody else here isn't connecting with them doesn't mean that you shouldn't be connecting with them too. It
Right.
may just be that that is your connection, which is the whole
Yeah.
point, right? Like, the
Yeah.
whole point is to get down to it being one on one. Like,
Yeah.
nobody actually wants to be in a situation where you all like the same guy. That doesn't make any sense. Like, and then
Mhm.
that outcome is terrible one. um Considering the odds, you want to get to the point where someone is like, I'm actually only vibing with you. So
Yeah.
for me, I feel like the connection between Hannah and Nick in the pods is probably one of the only couples where I feel like it kind of came out early on,
Yeah.
and it was frustrating to see her ignore her gut. I'm really glad that she reached out to him to kind
Yeah,
of,
got another date.
yeah, I'm really glad that she did. But I know that could probably be frustrating for him, because I think once they got out the pods, like, it seemed like she was a little bit controlling in terms of, um
How she wanted things to be. "Oh, you
exactly.
gotta take out the trash. You gotta do this. You have to take out the trash without me asking you. You have to do all the things without me asking you.
Yeah,
This is
she
what I do
became
on
his
Fridays
mom
and Sundays."
immediately. I was like, you
Mhm.
are too young to be mommying someone around. That's how it came off. Like, that probably wasn't her intention.
And nobody wants to hear all the time, "Well, I grew up this way, so you just don't know this stuff because this is the way I grew up, and I need to do this and that." And I thought he took it pretty well, in regards to the camera, because he could have taken a lot of her actions and become a villain real quick. Like, between the duck situation, he could have taken that little pissy attitude that she had about it, and it could have turned into a full-blown argument where he would have seemed like a villain. Um, that could have turned into something when she was talking to him about finances and making it sound like she's the know-it-all about everything. He was just listening and saying, "Oh, okay, that sounds good." Like that type of thing. "Oh, wow, that's great, blah, blah, blah." And he could have, said some things as well. Cause you see guys do that sometimes where
Mhm.
they're like, "Man, if that," like, "I know what I'm doing, like, I'm good, da, 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 da." So I think that she lucked up with him. And I think we can see a little bit more about him through his parents because I really
Mhm.
loved his mama, his little Cuban, right? I think Cuban mother.
Mhm.
And I thought that that was really a beautiful moment, like meeting his family and just getting to know him a little bit more. Uh, that kind of made me feel like, okay, I think he was raised right. And she was kind of like, look, he is kind of spoiled, but what we did was we focused on our kids' sports and stuff like that. We didn't focus as much on, some of these other skills, and maybe we should have, but we focused on our time together. And I was like, okay, I see that. So I don't know. Hannah, we'll see what happens with them. I don't know that they'll make it. I feel like even though her parents and her family seem to like him and her brother seems to like him, I still don't know whether they'll say yes. And if they do, I'm curious if they actually would make it. Um, I don't know if they just take the emotion and they say yes at the altar, and then we find out at the reunion that it didn't work, and that they're broken up, or if they just say no at the altar. I don't know what'll happen. Um, so yeah, they're a little iffy for me because I did like that she got his mom the pineapple stuff. I thought that that was thoughtful, and got the dad like the golf balls. I thought that that was really thoughtful.
Mm. Yeah,
So it's clear
that
they
was a
talked
nice
about
touch.
something. So I did like that, and I liked the moment that she had with his mom, but I just did not like how she was trying to make him seem like he's not an adult that is capable. And he's like, "Look, I clean up, like my space. Like when you went to my space, I cleaned it. It looks nice. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what it looks like." Keisha says, "I feel for the participants' parents, bringing
Ooh.
them into the
Oh, we're
craziness."
going to
Like,
talk about the parents in
yeah,
this next section. That's what we.
yeah, we're definitely gonna talk about some parents. So, um, yeah, this is. We'll see what happens with them. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so let's go, Alex and Tim, because we gotta save the best for last. Okay, so Alex and Tim. I would like to say that this is the first time that we've seen so many Black women make it out the pods, and
Yes.
we're talking about brown skinned Black women too. So that was pretty cool to me. And Alex is no exception there. Uh, Alex and Tim, made it into the pods, and they connect, but I just wish I really wish that the editors could give us more, because
Mm.
I'm like, I know that she did not fall in love with him because he loved his sisters. Like that is not the only reason. Like I know they had to talk about something else besides his sisters.
Mhm.
Like I Alex doesn't seem that gullible to me. I feel like there has to be some other stuff that she liked about him besides, oh, he has a soft spot for his deceased sisters. And it felt through the edit like he was trying to pull on heartstrings. But I will say that the fact that he was that open so early, I believe, because I think that was early in the process of him sharing those things and opening those doors. And then she was able to share about her parents and their MS and their relationships and things like that. And I thought that that was good. So it was, I wanted to see what they loved about each other. You know what I mean? Like I
Mhm.
wanted to see more of their love story outside of the grief. So I don't doubt that they like each other. I don't doubt that they love each other. I think that they do, but I wanted to see more. I think I
Yeah,
want.
I have to agree with you. Watching Alex and Tim, I'm not gonna lie, for me, especially, I'm going through my own grief season right now. It was
Yeah,
tough. This is probably one of the heavier edits that I think we've seen in Love Is Blind for a
yeah,
while. It's a lot. Um, and I it was frustrating for me because I felt like they made Tim's personality grief.
yeah,
And I have a huge gripe with that. Like I feel like because they've made his personality grief, I'm still asking myself, well, who is Tim? Like
yeah,
who is he? Like beyond his loss. Um, at least with Alex, like knowing that her dad has MS, I have a better sense of her personality and like
yeah,
maybe things that push her buttons and other things like that. I'm still asking myself, who is this guy? And I don't think
yeah.
that's his fault. I think that's the edit that they gave him, and
Mhm.
it's a little irritating because I actually feel like I actually feel like these two have a connection.
Yeah,
Um, and I think we see that when
when
they
they
have
get home.
their sit down conversation after the incident that we didn't see off camera, one of
Yeah,
many incidents that
yeah,
happened this season that we didn't see on camera.
yeah. These people
After
are like, we not cutting up on camera,
I, DC was like, we're not losing our jobs. I don't blame you.
right?
I think the way they handled that conversation
Yeah,
and the conflict and their feelings around it, to me, was a really good indicator that I actually think that they could be well matched.
mm-hmm.
I would say that the Alex is probably standing in her own way on this one. And
Yeah,
I think this is one of those situations where sometimes you just have to be very careful about what and how you say things. Like she has a
yeah.
sharp tongue, which
Because she told him
sometimes you
from the
need one.
jump, why you keep saying that? Stop saying
Mhm.
that. Stop saying that.
Like she's truthful and
He's
honest,
just
and
trying to,
she'll tell you the truth today, tomorrow, and forever. And I love that about her. Sometimes it it sounds harsh. That's just the truth. Like sometimes
yeah,
what she's saying comes off harsh, and it's like the first time, okay, haha, it's funny. The second time, and Hannah has this issue too, honestly, with Nikki D. Like sometimes it's like, are you joking? You being
yeah,
sarcastic? So I think there's some care that has to happen there, but I will say the scene with her dad and her
mhm,
family was very touching for me.
yeah,
And the fact that Tim read the letter that he wrote in the pod that was
mhm,
actually addressed to her dad and asked for her dad's blessing, that was a very beautiful moment.
yeah,
Um, and I do feel like they are well matched. I just think that
yeah,
there are things that they're going to need to continue to work through as they learn each other's personalities.
yeah,
Um, but I thought that was just such a beautiful moment. If we're giving out awards for Love Is Blind parents, this season is going to Alex's dad because
yeah.
at first I thought he was gonna be like, nah,
Mhm.
but
He pulled it
our
together.
our boy came through and was like, look, I'm giving you your blessing. You're gonna be part of our family. He was even telling her brothers, like, come meet your brother. I
Yeah,
mean, yeah. Keisha said that they had him in tears. I was crying. I'm not even gonna lie. I was in tears.
yeah.
I
It
was.
definitely brought me to tears, and I thought the fact that he did it in the pods, that was the first time ever that anybody read a letter to the father in the pods, period, right? So the fact that he read the letter first in the pods as if he was asking for her father's, blessing at that
Mhm.
point, even though he couldn't do it, and then to propose to her and then come back. And when he meets him, arranges so that he can read the letter to him in private and stuff like that. I thought that that was really good and that they were able to communicate and share that, and she was able to say like, okay, what we're going to do is we can leave and you can stay with him because he don't need to move a whole lot. I thought that that showed that they're having real conversations. I think
Mhm.
again, whatever happened that night on the getaway where they had those issues and they talked it out and then they continued to have this conversation. I thought that that showed that they could uh work through things. I also thought that him seeing her space and not running away
Ooh.
or making a whole bunch of jokes or like saying like, "Girl, you bet," because he could have said some stuff like, and they would have kept that in the edit. So I know he ain't say it at least on camera because they would have kept it in the edit. Like, "Girl, you better not have my house looking like that." Like he could have easily said this, but he didn't. He just stood there and was
Mhm.
like, "Okay, you got a lot of clothes." Like he was
She
just
was brave for showing her
taking.
space because her
Yeah,
space is probably what most people's apartments and homes look like because we're living in them, you know what I mean?
yes,
And when you go on a trip, because you have to remember they're in the pods for at least 2 weeks and they're on
yeah.
vacations. You've gone for like 3 weeks, you come back.
Yeah, you trying to find some cute fits and
Your place is probably in disarray. So it was relatable, but also in my mind I was like, "Ooh, girl, I probably would have had someone come and be like, 'Can you just straighten up real quick for me because we about to film?'" But
yeah.
he handled it
Yeah, I
like a
definitely
champ.
been like, "Sarah, can you come to my house? Like, I just need you real quick. Imma leave the key or I'm open the door so you could come in here. Just can you put a couple things on the hangers? Like, like put some stuff in the closet.
Look,
Can you take some stuff to your house for a few minutes? I'll take it back after the cameras leave."
okay. I'm surprised she wasn't like, "You guys, there's no place to look at. I'm sorry. Let's go to the next scene."
Yeah. So that was the only thing where I was like, dang, she lucky he ain't run. So I think clearly he's in love with her. I thought his space looked um mature.
Mm,
So I think that he's ready. I'm very curious to see, what will happen with them. But I think after seeing them go through a trial and work it out without it becoming something big,
mhm.
I think they might say yes at the altar. I
Yeah.
think that they can say yes.
That's
So
my thinking. I feel like the only reason they would say no is if off camera they had both agreed to it and
mhm.
decided that they weren't ready. But I'm not, at least right now where we are in the season, I'm not getting that vibe just yet.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. See you later, Keisha. Keisha's logging off.
Bye, Keisha
We got,
girl.
we got the last couple. So we on the last couple. So we just did Alex and Tim. So we coming with Ashley and Tyler, folks.
Oh gosh.
So
Where do we
Tyler
begin?
came off in the beginning like, I found my wife. Like, I'm in love. First
Mhm.
thing. Like he was legit like, I found this. Like this is my woman. So I thought at the beginning, I was loving his energy. I was actually loving all the I felt like the men this season were very vulnerable in
Mm.
the pods. I felt like they were honest about their feelings. They weren't covering up how they felt about people to the other guys. I think they were very open about like, oh man, like I'm in love, I'm such and such, like really cheering for each other and really getting
Yeah.
hyped. So I do feel like that was happening in the pods, which I appreciated. And I think with Tyler, that was the most evident. It was like in the beginning, he was like, "Oh, Ashley, I'm locked in." Period. Like I would be surprised if he had any other like seriously deep connections because it sounded like he locked in with her pretty easy and pretty quickly. Um and Ashley, it seems like she listens and she chill, like real chill and kind of listens in. Cause I mean he had some trauma too. Like so he had the relationship with his mom and
Mm.
not hearing I love you and all that type of stuff, which I thought was interesting. I'm curious what Ashley shared because we really didn't hear a lot, I think, on her end about her various things until the proposal when she read the letter to him.
Mm-hmm.
I think we heard a lot on his side, but we didn't hear as much on her side, I think, to really get to know her. Like, we know she looks bomb, we know her fits, you know, top tier, all of that. But I would have loved to hear a little bit more about her story.
Yeah, Ashley's another one who I feel like I didn't really get to know her in the pods.
Yeah.
And I mean, here's the thing about Tyler too, right? So it's DMV, it's DC. We're
Yeah.
over here. We're like, all right, like we're just kind of waiting for that shoe to drop.
Yeah.
And the way he conducted himself in the pods, I feel like had a lot of us being like, all right, let me reassess the trauma because I'm definitely projecting right now, like
Yeah.
it was nice to see them connect, but I feel very similar. Like I feel like what I saw was two very attractive people who just happened to be connecting in the pods and hadn't seen each other yet.
Yeah.
Um, and again, I feel like the stuff that we did get to learn about Tyler was heavy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I get it. We're all walking around with bags and
Yeah.
it's
The
just
30s.
and
What
and and
happens when you
and
have
that and
30s
that's
people?
that could be part of it too. Is like we have a lot of people in the 30s this season. We life is life, and so you got to take that into account. But I will say that it was a little frustrating. I wanted to see what really allowed them to have that connection. I think it was nice. The proposal was very sweet, and them meeting. I think they had one of the more genuine and exciting reactions, I would
Yeah.
say, to seeing each other. Uh, I feel that they built up while they were in Mexico, like that they were essentially like this power couple. Like Tyler and Ashley are good. They're definitely
Yeah.
going to be going to get married. Like they were both like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we get married, period. Um,
Yeah.
and everything is honky dory. And then, we finally get to one of the episodes, and all of a sudden, Ashley is on the couch talking with Tyler,
Mm-hmm.
and everything has just gone to crap. And you're, as a viewer, again, this is my gripe with the editing this season. What? Everything seemed fine a couple
Mm-hmm.
minutes ago, and now we're here, and she's crying
Yes.
and upset and asking why didn't this conversation happen earlier. And that part is frustrating to me because I think what we've seen this season, you mentioned this earlier, this is the first time where we've had this many Black women make it,
Yeah.
out of the pods, and in a couple. And I feel like a lot of them are experiencing pain again. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's hard
Yeah.
to see in these dating shows Black women crying because of something that a situation that has been either brought upon them because of their partner. It just goes back into that whole line of like the season is very heavy and full of trauma. From
Yeah.
Monica crying on the couch, Ashley crying on the couch. I think Marissa sitting there listening to Ramsey's kind of talk about like I don't really bang with the military like that, and
Yeah.
her basically I personally feel like almost walking back her own identity.
Mm-hmm.
I think seeing Alex realize like Tim was basically out the door,
Yeah.
it was a lot to take in.
Yeah.
um and I also wonder because I do personally feel like a lot of these shows don't take a lot of measures and care, especially of Black women's hearts. Like
Yeah.
the production is often at the expense of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it does make me sad, and it's very frustrating to see that there was something that was very important, that was life changing in terms of how the relationship would move forward, was disclosed so late in the process.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely think he could have mentioned that earlier. And now we know. So at the end of episode 9, he's pretty much saying he tells her off camera that he has sperm babies. Um, and she's like, okay. And now the producers, I guess, are having her talk about it on camera, having them rehash that conversation on camera. And it definitely stinks because we just saw her introduce her dad to
Mm-hmm.
him, who her dad has become a fan favorite. Like people have been DMing her for the dad's information.
I thought that
Like,
was
is
her
daddy
brother. I'm not
single?
gonna lie.
People are like, is your daddy single? Can I get that number? People are looking up his profile from her tags on Instagram and stuff. So he met her dad and, promised to care and stuff like that. And then also, they've been having conversations about kids and he didn't bring it up. So I think that was a miss on his part. Now, with the drama that we've seen on social media regarding this, I feel like there's so many different stories, so many different things. I think that I feel for the children's faces being put out there in relation to this. I think that that was unacceptable. I think that because I think people talked about him removing their photos from his Instagram or Facebook or something like that. And honestly, I would have too. If I knew it was coming
Mm-hmm.
and I knew that this was going to get aired on TV, I probably would remove my child's stuff off as well if I needed to, not necessarily to hide, but to just protect them from, people just because we're nosy. This show is going to billions of households across the world. And that's the first thing we do, right? We go to their Instagram and look and stuff like that. And I think that people are not showing care by showing the children's
Mm-hmm.
photos across. And there's a lot of, we don't know. And honestly, Tyler probably can't tell us until after the show is over because it could reveal major plot points and things like that. So he really can't do that quite yet. All he can do is address what we've seen so far. And I think I've seen him address that he should have told Ashley earlier and that he just couldn't find the right time, blah, 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 which, some BS. But
That is an
um,
excuse, baby, because
yeah, that's an excuse.
we definitely have already seen in the pods. Because is it Jessica? I want to say Jessica. I don't know
Yeah,
why. She
EpiPen.
has, yeah, EpiPen. She has a daughter and made it very clear from the gate that she had a daughter.
Mhm.
And I mean, Jessica's bad, y'all. She okay.
Yeah,
She could pull
whoever
some
she wants.
guys, okay? And
Mhm.
she had no problem being like, look, I have a daughter, period. And it's not like
Yeah,
Tyler had to be like, well, I have 3 kids. But you should probably disclose that, like, hey, you know, I I did a very, maybe you can call it a noble thing, but there's a lot of
yeah,
people out there who are friends with people who are unable to,
conceive and stuff
conceive,
like that.
or maybe they're in, same sex couples or, whatever. And, for him to be able to be a donor, that was something that was really important to him. Like, I actually feel like this is a missed opportunity on both Tyler and, quite frankly, the producer's part, because I think
Mhm.
this could have shown an aspect to Tyler that was a little bit more giving, that was a little bit more
Yeah,
selfless. Depending on his situation, I don't want to speculate, but if, the pictures that were out there, he was in those pictures with those kids, it could have been an opportunity to have been like, hey, and also, I'm still in their lives. Like,
mhm.
everybody is aware of the situation, because if you're going to be getting married, they need to know everything. So
Yeah,
I feel like it was a missed opportunity. to have shared that in the pods. And I think the thing that was most frustrating to me was that he robbed Ashley of her choice.
Yeah.
um she had gotten so far along in this process that you can tell that when she was on the couch, it was less of what am I going to do and more of like how am I going to get through this. And that to me was
Yeah.
very sad.
And she, like, they had just had the conversation, I think, about the wedding and, like wedding
Hmm.
planning and stuff like that. So, and I think, if he wanted, he could have said, something blanket about in the pods about like, yeah, I did this particular thing, right, with my friend and her wife, and I did this. And then when they got to the point that they were in, like if she still said yes, and they got to the point where they were on the vacation, that he could have had the conversation with her off camera then, because they have plenty off camera time when they're
Mm,
on the vacation and stuff like that, like at nighttime or whatever else. He could have had that conversation with her and just been like, look, this is, I'm gonna tell you all of this, or at least, like, this is what I'm gonna tell you about the situation, blah blah blah. I didn't want to say it in the pods because it would, like it would just got blown out of proportion, blah blah blah. And I just want to make sure I'm giving you the full picture. And I think that would have sufficed, and then she could kind of make decisions that way. But I think waiting, because they were probably back at least a week and a half by the time they're having that conversation. Because I guess it's before they try on dresses and things like that.
yeah.
But they've clearly like met family, so they've had to have contacted family, figured out where they're going to meet, like all that type of stuff. So that, was clearly a good amount of time. So I think he had plenty of time to mention it in the pods and then have a deeper conversation off camera about it, and where she could say like, all right, tell me everything, because I don't want to be surprised when we get home. Okay, bet we can have this conversation. And I think that way you could protect the children, not necessarily protect his reputation, because who cares? But my thing is protecting the children in this is really what's missing amongst the adults in the room and amongst TikTok and social media, like putting the children's faces along with this um really stinks as we're trying to figure out what happened. So that that's kind of how I feel about it. I do know that both of them follow each other on Instagram as of now, and they're still like tagging each other in like recap photos. So I'm curious if they kind of just said, all right, we're gonna be friends, or if they went ahead and got married. And if they did get married last year, I'm curious what the last month, or not even month, last couple weeks has been
Mm.
like with all of the social media and stuff like that, because she has put on her post, Ashley has put on her post, like, look, don't bash anybody, any of my cast members. Like, I'm gonna post these pictures, but if you bash, I'm gonna block. Um, and she's not entertaining the BS, honestly. But I will tell you about one comment because it was funny. Somebody said under there, she said, all right, finish the lyric. It's 7 p.m. Friday, 95 degrees.
I mean,
Like, can you finish the lyric? I know you can't tell me anything, but can you finish this statement?
mm, trying to get her caught up already.
Trying to get her, breaking her Netflix contract. So I'm curious to see, like, do you think, because it seems like she is smart, that she is put together and very, let's use Garrett's word, calculated, about the decisions she makes and stuff like that. So I'm curious if she goes with her heart or her head.
I think this couple is going to be a cliffhanger. That's how I'm
Yeah.
thinking. That's what I'm thinking. It's going to be a cliffhanger. I think we're not going to really know until we
get
get,
to the wedding.
yeah, or close to it. I
Mhm.
feel like based on that conversation from the couch, I mean, we're gonna find out tomorrow because new episodes drop tomorrow.
Yeah.
But based on the conversation from the couch, I just got the sense that like she's trying to search within herself to continue.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get the sense of like this conversation is marking the end of our journey because this is too much. That's not what I got.
Saw them in the previews too for the next couple episodes. So it seems like they're still pushing forward. So I'm curious.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they go to the altar and then she says no. That's also
Yeah.
a possibility.
Yeah, because she could just be trying to like figure out how she feels and she needs time. Because I mean, they're in a truncated period of time.
Mhm.
They got cameras in their face. They have to still work or do their other obligations and things like that and manage, oh my gosh, am I gonna get married to this person
And
that
she
I
probably
just
has other questions too, like
Mhm.
how involved is he? Like, is she essentially becoming a stepmom of 3 kids? Like,
Mhm. Like, do you
or
have to be involved? Are you wanting to be involved? What does that look like? She probably trying to scrub his social media, like looking at social media, etc. Like, do I need to have a conversation with this woman? Like, what does that look like? So,
and even what does finances look like? Like, we're still trying to
Mhm.
figure out what the real truth is between what this
Yeah.
arrangement was, and it's like, was he giving resources to them, which is like
Mhm.
not a terrible thing. But if you're going to be getting married to somebody, you have to disclose that because it's going to impact them financially too. So you kind of have
Right.
to have a sense of like, okay, what's happening here? So only time will tell with these two.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I think we're always gonna see a shakeup at the mixer with the Pod Squad. So that should be interesting for the upcoming episodes. And then, because are we even getting? I don't think we're even getting to the weddings these upcoming episodes. I feel like we still have another week until the weddings, right?
I think that we get the last 2 episodes this
So
week.
this is the last two.
And then I think the finale is next week. I think that time has gone by very quickly. I think that's
So
the check.
yes, I think we'll see what happens. Because I don't know. I feel like it started with a slow burn, and then we're getting like these ticks of things that are happening. We're just like, okay, Monica and Steven out. Will everyone else make it to the altar? Because I feel like Atlanta, I mean, not Atlanta, Charlotte, we only had like what, two couples make it to the altar.
Yeah.
And then, that's when everybody got mad because Clay left AD at the altar. But it's like somebody had to go to the altar. So I think that's what I'm interested in seeing. Like who actually makes it to the altar. So we know Monica and Steven are out. Will everybody else make it to the altar? And who will say yes? We'll see.
To be continued.
To be continued. Really appreciate anyone who came and watched the episode. Make sure you like and subscribe. See us, holla at us next week as we try to talk a little bit more about what happened these upcoming episodes that are dropping tomorrow. So really excited. Want to thank Keisha Rock for joining in earlier
Hey,
and
shout out to you,
commenting in the
Keisha.
chat. So we appreciate you, girl, and enjoy the conversation. And we'll see y'all next week. Deuces, like and subscribe.